You're just now joining us. We have our panel of Jeremy and Duncan. Jeremy, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what you want to get out of the podcast, or what you think you can bring to the podcast?
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Greider. I'm the CEO of Cart Consultant, which is a big commerce focused e-commerce design and integration firm. And basically, what I think I bring to the table is just a little bit different view, I think, on technology. I'm not a more technical guy. I would say I lean to being more along the sales side, but I am technical enough that I can make my way around. But I think, just like anything else, it's always nice to have somebody that's learning some of what you're talking about as well, and kind of bringing their own fresh perspective to, the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's how I was seeing it as well. Like, you're going to have that enough technical know-how to keep up with the conversation, but you're going to have questions that either our audience might have, or it's going to make us think of things in a different way.
And plus, I got a lot of really cool tattoos that I just noticed you can see on this position of the camera.
Definitely. Duncan, how about you? What are you looking to get out of Welcome to the Internet?
Yeah, so basically, I kind of think of myself like an open source enthusiast. I really believe in free software and open source and collaborating on things. I feel like, with enough eyeballs, any bug or any problem becomes insignificant. I feel like I'm able to provide kind of technical insights on some things. Not on everything, obviously. I don't know everything, but I know a lot about Linux and Mac and Windows operating systems, basically all the way down to the fundamental level. What else? I'm not really sure what else I can I bring to the table. I've just been around the internet a long time. I know, I've seen a lot of things come and go. I like to comment on the state of modern design and what, some things that I think are good and things that I think are bad. And I think there's always room to improve on anything, no matter what it is. Nothing is ever perfect, so there's always room to improve on anything. As long as you're, open and receptive of that, then the sky is the limit for whatever you want to build. And it goes back to collaboration. With enough eyes, any bug becomes insignificant.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
but I hope to. Yep. No, go ahead.
I think that also kind of comes back to, just different perspectives. I think all of us have a little bit different perspective from the other one. So
definitely. No, that's something that I just want to even call out myself, that if you're interested in joining this podcast, we're open to guests or even new panelists to bring their own perspectives to the table. That's really my goal with the podcast, is to not only share those perspectives, but either like educate or just help people think of things in different ways.
Yeah,
And you'll
I mean, if you
actually hear,
disagree with everything we're saying, come on and join us so we
yeah,
can
exactly.
talk about it, see why you
Yeah.
disagree, and try to learn from your experiences. You know?
Yeah, and like I will have considered this a failed podcast if there aren't dissenting opinions, if there aren't differing opinions coming in to say, hey, like, but what about this? And we're definitely going to be leaving things out. So be sure to comment or leave a review, what have you.
I will leave a review.
What do you think about the topic of technology and elections and like, I don't know. I think there's something there. I'm just trying to think of how to put it.
You mean how lacking our electric
Yeah.
technology is?
Yeah,
in the US?
that I think that's what's the impressive thing.
We're still
How
mailing
little of it we
ballots.
actually have.
Yeah. It's like,
And even the mail-in ballots
like,
we're struggling with.
like we're gonna land a dolphin on the moon before we get the elections figured out.
You know, actually,
like
I
that
watched
one, Kyle?
I watched a talk from Chaos Communication Congress on voting, and it was fucking enlightening. Like, it literally was so enlightening. The Hold on one second.
Sure. And then on the flip side, we have like dip your thumb in paint, and that's like more, what is it? Like more accurate. It seems like with a lot of elections.
So the talk that I was watching on the Chaos Communication Congress was talking about an election in I think it was Norway or Finland. It was in one of the Icelandic countries, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what they were doing an election for, but he talked about having to roll out the voting system and having, you know, everyone was going to be voting like at the same time, basically. Everyone's going to be using the system at the same time, and he had to make sure that this shit was secure, and he had to make sure that this shit was not going to go down. And they talked a lot about the challenges of building this infrastructure and how to make a secure voting mechanism. And I don't remember exactly how it worked there, but they had something probably pretty similar to like a social security number here in the U.S., but they use that as kind of like the basis for the registration process, I guess, if you will. I'm not like an expert on their election system, obviously, but it was a very enlightening talk to see what is possible with the technology that we have now, to see how differently that same situation, you know, that same type of voting situation is handled in the U.S. It really is astounding to me that we don't use basically any technology, really. You know, like, for example, my ballot, I fill it in with, you know, a pencil, and it's using an optical, you know, recognition system to check my vote, basically. You know, that's no more complex than, you know, a Scantron test that's been taken since like the 80s, right? So the fact that like you still even need paper ballots, to me, kind of is it's a hard thing, because you have a lot of people that are just never going to be like, oh no, I don't ever trust the computer, I don't ever trust the computer, right? So it's hard to convince those types of people that it's more secure, that it actually is better than a paper ballot, right? Because I think that is possible. Now, is anything perfect? No, nothing is perfect, but if you design a system, you know, intelligently, it is possible to do it with very, you know, I don't remember what they had, but they had some type of system in place to make sure that there was no manipulation going on, right? They had some way to check the validity of each of the votes, right?
Just a quick history lesson. Back in the day, they used to send a guy on a horse to Washington, D.C. and say, no, this is the guy we voted for. No, just trust us. Don't listen to these other people. This is who we voted for. So it doesn't seem like too much of a progression from that. Well, and then we had the whole electoral college to begin with, but I guess that's kind of a different topic.
Yeah, they to me, like, I get that people want to be able to see like some sort of receipt, you know, or something of what they voted. but even that can be digital, you know?
Yeah.
It can be digital and just make it where
Send
they
an
can
email.
print it up. But yeah, like, I mean, how hard is it to, I don't know. It just seems like everything should be
Or
digital by now.
or if you just make literally fucking everything public, then what is there to hide,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're like, oh, but then you have the problem of like, oh, you find out who people actually voted for, so that
Yeah.
becomes a security issue. That's where that whole problem comes down to, basically. For me, it's yes, people want to be able to have proof that their vote counted, but at the same time, if you
They don't want
allow that,
people
then
to know.
people are going to try to abuse it. You know what I mean? People are going to try to see how other people voted. So you have to make sure that it's only accessible to the person who cast that vote, right?
That's
Exactly.
And it's not impossible. It's definitely doable on a technical level.
My major
I just don't think
question
it's easy.
in this election is Biden taking money from China, or is Trump using the Russians? It is really this. Berman Supreme. Why is he not on the ticket? It's 2020.
Right? Oh my God.
and
Where is
and
Vermin? We
seriously,
demand Vermin.
Berman should be on the ticket with a boot on his head. He should have been in every one of those debates. And I just think it is appalling. And
I've been like out of the news cycle. I don't know who this is. Who's Berman Supreme?
Okay, look up Berman Supreme. I don't know if you could share it, and I'm sure like you can go back and show it. But
yeah, he's run for president like for the last I don't even know how many election cycles now. At least the last 4.
I've never heard of him. Oh my God!
Look it up and then share the screen so everybody can see.
Yeah. Oh wait a minute. Hold on. I'll share it.
The man has a massive Rumpelstiltskin's beard and wears a boot on his damn head.
Yep.
Now you got to look at the Google images for that, though.
Okay.
This guy is a trip, man. They make him look good there.
Oh, okay. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's got a boot on his head. He wears a rubber boot on his head.
Who was that guy who ran in the UK? And he won. It was like Sir something.
I don't know.
Hold on, I'll find it.
They have like whole fake political parties over there.
It's almost like the same. He wore a costume. He's like Buckethead, but for politics in the UK.
Yeah. Well, I honestly
Lord Buckethead. Wait, no, that's an actual satire. There's something.
Yeah,
anyway.
Buckethead is a guitar player.
Yeah, Wait, no, Lord Buckethead did run for UK elections.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's like their version of that.
You know, when Guns N' Roses had a kind of hiatus from the real band members and kind of brought on like a bunch of like famous guitarists and stuff, Buckethead was one of them.
Yeah. No, Buckethead's legit. I was just, this guy took his name or something.
Yeah.
Buckethead probably took his name from that guy. Depending on when that happened.
Maybe. No, you might be right.
Well, I don't know. Maybe this happened in 1987 is what it's saying.
Yeah, Buckethead, the guitarist, has been around a while.
The original, there was a, Lord Buckethead was created by American filmmaker Todd Durham for his 1984 film Hyperspace.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of where this guy got his name from, I'm guessing. It might not be. Anyway, we're getting way off topic.
Yeah, if a guitar ran for president, I would vote for it.
Yeah, I mean,
give me something to vote for this year. Oh my gosh. I don't care who you are. I don't see how anybody could be 100% happy this year with their choices. You know,
I think South Park nailed it.
Oh
don't think
yeah,
I've
they did
seen.
have a satire, didn't they?
It's always between a giant douche and a turd
Oh God,
sandwich. Those are always
yeah,
your choices. That's
yeah,
it.
no,
Doesn't
that's
matter
true.
who's it. You always get the giant douche or the turd sandwich. It's like, which one do
Pretty
you
sure.
want?
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I'll digress.
I digress. Oh, do you really? Do you really digress?
Absolutely. I vote for the Monster Mash. That's who I vote for. Monster Mash wins
Oh,
every year.
Monster Mash. Oh, dude, I'm telling you. Now, where I'm really concerned is not the technology necessarily, but it's after the election how people will react to it.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a shit show the next few days. Oh
Yeah,
wow, that was bad. Sorry.
I'm like, I just want to have I will be so proud of America if we keep our shit together over the next week. Yeah,
No
I
words.
will be. I would be pleasantly surprised if
No
there is not
riots.
just absolute riots everywhere, regardless of
Yeah,
who they vote in.
yeah.
Yeah, I expect a shit show either way.
So I thought of a topic. What did you guys do for Halloween? I didn't do much, so.
I did nothing. I didn't even know people were doing the socially distanced thing. Like, nobody told me.
So
Dicks.
I didn't know this, but I didn't know this was going to happen. But my block in Leander, which is it's a suburb of Austin, is right like it's the block that everybody comes to from the whole area. Right?
Oh wow,
And so,
candy block.
Yeah, candy block. Like everybody always has big displays outside on Halloween, Christmas, and 4th of July.
Nice.
And so everybody comes here. Well, this year they still came. I was like, no, what?
Go back.
Like, and I mean, I literally went out and we went trick-or-treating, but it was interesting. Almost everybody had some sort of way of distancing themselves or packaging it to make it a little safer. And I think, wearing your mask, maybe doing a couple of things like that, I think that's, all right. I mean, I think you have a reasonable expectation that you'll be okay, but, still, we went out, believe it or not, on Halloween on crazy 2020 Halloween.
Nice.
I didn't even dress up. I was just scared.
Is that what you told
Scared of
people?
COVID this year.
Just scared of the Rona.
Scared of the Rona.
I know you've told me this. How old are your kids? Or you have one kid, right, Jeremy?
No, I've got 4 kids. I've got
Oh God, I was wrong.
yeah, I got an 8-year-old boy, I got an 11-year-old girl, and a 15-year-old girl, and then I've got a 17-year-old boy that's going to be graduating and going to college next year, believe it or not.
No, that's does he know where he's going yet, or is it what's
I
he
think he's
interested in?
narrowed it down to UNT and UT is 2 choices for now.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, hook 'em.
I just I never had seen I didn't even know there was a Matthew McConaughey Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I just spent the night watching that.
Was it good?
It's really campy. Like if you're into campy scary, it's perfect for you. Like at one point, Renee Zellweger is like falling through a window, and then the window's just gone. It's like they totally said, "Screw it, nobody's gonna notice that." But it was it's like kind of funny, but it's got like scary moments too.
Yeah. It seems like I remember that, but it's been a minute.
It's like 96.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a minute since that one, but it's not the original.
No.
I want to say the original, one of the original buildings for that, they moved to Kingsland.
No way. That's
Yeah,
where
and
my girlfriend's
and
family.
I want to, and you can go and stay like in one of the buildings overnight for like a
Jeez.
certain like an Airbnb. I'm like, oh hell no,
No
man.
thanks. Yeah.
Man, I
Shit's
am a
haunt. If
baby when
anything's
it comes
haunted,
to
that
that kind of
is.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Like
Oh
I,
no,
I don't
I'm not
even
trying to
believe in
get
that
creeped
stuff.
out.
Yeah. Like you're just asking things to haunt you if you're like, oh no, it'll be fine. It's like that Geico
Yeah,
commercial. Oh, let's go to
dude.
the
I
running
used
car.
So when I went to college, I went to college at Southwestern Simmons-Gadden University in Waxahachie, Texas. And Waxahachie is really known for like filming a lot of like movies and stuff in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Super Collider was there, and it's an interesting little town. And I used to walk around downtown because at night and stuff, and just because it was pretty and it was quiet and like it was like kind of like a throwback to another day and time.
Right.
You know, it
Right.
was before everything was gentrified, and it was really like I don't know. It just had a.
Old
I've
town vibe.
always, yeah, I've always loved like stuff that's really earthy and feels real. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I feel like I need that in my life, and so. But I would be walking around down there and just get scared to death, man, because I'd hear like a little noise or something, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, that place, I'm telling you, would be the perfect town for a great horror movie
Yeah. No, it
because there's
sounds like
tons of
it.
old houses, you know, and like a classic, like an old Halloween, you know,
Right.
which
Yeah.
to me, like Halloween to me is like the ultimate series
Yeah.
of Halloween of scary movies or
Or
one of
yeah.
the ultimate, yeah.
Yeah. There was a year where or like a Halloween October where I just like set up a whole bunch of movies like that because I was really sheltered growing up. Just my mom would not let me watch anything like that. So I was like 15, 16. I like watched all of them. It was like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, original Texas Chainsaw, and it was like it like some of them didn't hit as well as they would have if I was younger, but like um, Halloween, I like those three like really hit home. It was like, well, one, we're in Texas, so it's gonna
Yeah.
have a little bit of an effect. But yeah, just the end of those movies, you just kind of sit there for a minute. You're like, whoa, what did I just experience? It was kind of similar with that other one. Like just because Matthew McConaughey's the way he is, and he's just like going way above and beyond like stuff you even see him in now. He's just like beyond crazy. Um, just like I walked out and I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah. I I don't know, man. Have you ever had a movie that shouldn't scare you and it did?
That's
You
what
know
I
what I
felt with
mean?
that one. I was like, why am I scared?
Like I watched a movie and it was about like I don't know if it was like Marfa County or something. I grew up out in West Texas and man,
Yeah.
there was a movie about aliens that they found and supposedly, you know,
Whoa.
all this stuff had happened and you know, there was a sighting and it was close to where I was watching the movie close to where the
Whoa.
actual area
Yeah.
was. I didn't sleep that night, dude. It scared the living hell out of me, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was probably like 13, you know, but it scared the crap out of me, man.
That was like me and Signs. Like Signs, I watched it later and I was like, that was not nearly as scary. But because the dogs would start barking in that movie and then the dogs would start barking outside, I was like, they're coming for me like right now. I don't know what to do. I was like 12 or 13 too, though.
Yeah.
All right, and today we have our panel. First, I'd like to introduce you to Jeremy Greider. Jeremy, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing well. We also have Steven, or you might know him better as SelfHostedPro on Reddit,
Hey, how you doing?
and Duncan Yo-Yo1, known as Duncan Yo-Yo1 across the internet.
Yes, yes. Hello, hello. Hope everyone's doing good today.
I think the best way to kind of start this off would be some of the current news. Duncan wasn't here when we originally started talking about Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk has seen yet another delay. And this isn't really focusing on Cyberpunk being delayed, but more so delays in either software releases or, in this case, a video game release. But this is the third delay. What do you think of in most cases, I'd say it's a good thing. Like, I'd rather a perfect product versus a broken product, but I think they're really starting to challenge gamers' patience in this case.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I brought up when we were talking about this earlier was, would people be as upset if they weren't as transparent with like the development process as they have been? How they've been talking about what step of the way they're at every single, time they advance, releasing like insane amounts of demos, the amount of content that they've put out before the game has even been released, with that Night City Wire, series that they've been doing. So, I mean, I definitely see why people are upset about it, but at the same time, this happens to all kinds of games, and we never even hear about it.
Yeah.
It's really fair.
You know what it kind of reminds me of is we were talking about Apple and Mac before, and it kind of reminds me of how they always did their research and development, and then they would pop in and do a presentation. All of a sudden they had all this technology, and sometimes they would have a few things they would let out, but they were pretty top secret about it up till the point that they were pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that sentiment. I think the whole games industry really shouldn't even do like release dates per se. Like you should just put the games out when they're done. The distribution channels are established enough now to where you can have a game digital and you can literally have it in the store, in a couple days or whatever. So I don't see any point to setting a hard date on release of a game, especially when you're going to, by virtue of having that date, you're going to force your employees to work themselves harder and potentially, burn themselves out.
Yeah.
So I think that having a release date is kind of a double-edged sword. Like, yes, people want to know when they can expect to play a game, but I don't think they should really ever be released before they're done. I don't agree with the model that a lot of modern games take, where they put out a product on release day and it's half of a product, and then you have a day one patch or then a patch down the road, and then eventually it becomes worthwhile, right? Like you shouldn't even have released that until it was done in a playable state. So I'm perfectly fine with them delaying as long as they need to make this game that much better. You know what I mean? Like it's only going to get better from what we've seen. So I'm okay with any type of delay, anything like that. And I know a lot of people are mad about it, but realistically, these developers, with the scope of what they're trying to create, they should have as much time as they need to create this.
Yeah, but you have to look at it too from the standpoint of a business.
I was thinking that too.
Business wise, you have to set some dates and stuff. But
they need to pre-order money.
How you approach that and how limited you are with that really has to do, I think, a lot with whether you're a public or a private company too. So it kind of depends.
And if we're talking specifically about, CD Projekt Red, they're not going to go under by delaying this game a couple of months or whatever, right? Like they have plenty of other sources of revenue. They run, GOG, which is an entire platform that they make, revenue off of. So in this specific instance, I don't think them delaying the game is going to hurt them financially in any degree, which is why they've chosen to delay it yet again. The people up at top have to know this, that as much as people are going to be disappointed, that it is going to create a better end product, right? And isn't that what it's about at the end of the day, is delivering a good product? Like that's how CD Projekt Red is. I can't say that about every developer. If you look at a lot of other developers, that's not, their modus operandi per se. But from CD Projekt Red's history, they have a history of, developing and releasing fully fleshed games right from the beginning. They're not the type of company to release something half-assed and then patch it down the road.
Yeah, I hate that. That's in any software. When people come out with,
that reminds me of Nintendo. That Nintendo's been really bad about that lately. Not really bad, but 5-10 years ago they would have said, no, this is it. If we do anything else, it's gonna be extra. And then now I feel like DLC's required practically to get a Nintendo game. Like it's completely flipped for them, where it's, yeah, we made this game, but can you pay us $20 more and you'll get the real game?
Mm-hmm.
And what were you going to say about software in general, though? That's kind of where I was going with it, too.
Yeah. Software in general, I think it really, to me, if I owned that type of a company, understand, I'm not a developer, so I don't speak the same language that you guys do necessarily, but from a business standpoint, I would certainly say if you want to incentivize quicker production, set goals that are also going to be financially beneficial to your coders, and they'll code faster, they'll get it done, they'll give you a better job. That's how you do it. That's really how you do it in that type of business, I think. And if they're cash positive, I don't see why they couldn't. Stuff like that will get the product out faster, better, the whole thing.
Definitely. We were this might be a good segue to something we were talking about earlier. Adobe's very just release driven, whereas like 10 years ago they had CS2, CS3, CS4. Now it's just Creative Cloud, get all the things, get all the updates. Like they just pushed out Photoshop 2021 like yesterday.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Literally yesterday. Because I just done an update and I was like, oh, I thought I updated Photoshop, but it's a whole new version now.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, some of that is probably due to, them getting a lot better with like CI, CD type stuff where they actually have like a DevOps team. So they're able to continuously develop something, continuously deploy it. So they don't have to have like major release versions if they're pushing an update every week or two. At least that's how development is moving in the future, is you're going to have just continuous development, continuous releases.
Mhm.
And I think that ties a lot into software as a service as opposed to what we've seen before with the release model schedule where you buy it and then you own that, forever. And then if you want to upgrade, you maybe pay a fee or whatever. I think part of the CI/CD thing ties into a lot of companies shifting to a service-based model where you pay like a monthly fee or like a yearly fee for access to the service as well. Especially
Music.
for things like Photoshop, where you're constantly iterating on what you already have and making it better and making improvements and stuff like that. So I definitely see it, but I think it is also a double-edged sword in that you truly never really own that software, right? Especially with the licensing that they have. You get to use it, but you don't truly ever own that software. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. You have a bad month and can't afford it. Well, too bad.
Yeah, no longer.
Bye-bye.
That's funny. Like, it's funny we're talking about this because, Duncan, you can kind of attribute to, these are very similar topics to things we talked about on predecessor podcasts that we had, where it was like, man, we're moving in this direction. I don't know if I like this. Because you had like iTunes, you don't really own it, but like you felt like you owned it at least a little bit more than you do with Apple Music. And now we're seeing the same thing with just software in general.
Spotify, the same way,
Yeah, definitely.
You can download it, but the day you don't make your payment, you've lost. So that's why I stick to always trying to have vinyl. I like the old
Yeah,
school.
there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think one of the reasons you see a lot of companies moving in this direction too is because with a subscription-based service, it's a lot easier to estimate your monthly revenue. So you have all of these people who are in a monthly subscription who are going to pay you this amount, on this day. And you have that continuously, and you can look at like Confluence as an example of like a major company that's letting you host your product on your own machine. And, it's really popular in a self-hosted community because it's only $10 for a license. You can host it on your machine up to 10 users, which is more than enough for most people. And now
they're cloud?
They're like, well, so what they did is last week they announced that they're going to stop supporting self-hosting, even for enterprises and whatnot. And they're going to force everyone to move to their cloud product. They gave a deadline of like 4 years, so you got time.
That's not so bad.
It's still,
I just saw the headline.
Consider.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So that's interesting because BigCommerce actually came from Interspire originally, which was not a SaaS product, right? And they literally, I believe, had
it's like
an
email marketing. Yeah.
email marketing program that literally just, I think, sold out or something. I don't know if they sold out or what happened, but they're no longer under BigCommerce like 2 years ago, maybe. So,
Oh, wow.
but
I
it
didn't
was
know
still
about that
going.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I just can't even imagine, like, one of the things that I think is like a sin against humanity is QuickBooks. Why is QuickBooks not always online? Why is that not always accessible online? Enterprise should be like this badass, like, wonderland of
and just
of
cruising
like,
down.
yeah, of like financial glory,
Right,
but
exactly.
no, they've got to make you put it on your machines, and then they have the online version.
Yeah, do you want the
like
SaaS app?
really
We'll charge you more.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have to put it on your computer or your servers, it's just
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
I think that too. I think
Connect
a
to
lot
other softwares because of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. QuickBooks, like the main problem with it is it's hard to integrate with other stuff unless you go with their cloud version. So I think that's probably their main like selling point. Because I know the local version, I was doing like an e-commerce project a couple months back, and we had to get like a proprietary like WordPress add-on to even be able to sync our QuickBooks inventory with store inventory, and that's on WordPress, which is like open source GPL license.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've noticed a really large gap in the industry between inventory control systems, right? Like there's no really good way to keep track of an inventory if you have an online store other than to physically like go and verify each thing. I haven't seen any type of integrated service with like a scanner where you can just barcode everything.
There's stuff like Skubonic involved. I think Linworks even may do it.
It's expensive
Really?
though. On that note, it's like $3,000 a month. Yeah. No.
Nothing cheap.
Yeah. I think he means more like just like out of the box, like
affordable, out of the box. Yeah.
Yeah. So, action. So what operating systems are you guys running at home right now?
I use Apple and so OS and Mac OS, and I use Windows devices. So.
Nice. I'm using, at least for my desktop, I'm using Manjaro, and then for my server stacks, I'm using Proxmox for the hypervisor, and then I'm using Open Media Vault for like my NAS OS. Everything else just runs Debian.
Nice.
So for me, I mean, I run basically a mix of everything. My desktop machine is a Arch machine, but I also have Mac OS machines and Windows machines around just for testing in those particular apps that don't either run under Wine or don't run well in a VM. Mostly like flashing stuff for embedded devices and things like that are really picky about being in a VM when they like connect and disconnect from the USB controller. That's mostly why I keep Windows machines around. Honestly, to me, Windows on the desktop is like if you're gaming, then yeah, you probably run Windows. But like if you're doing other stuff, you probably don't, or at the very least, use a VM or Windows subsystem for Linux or something like that to do your actual work.
No, it's kind of a similar boat. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm kind of a similar boat as far as just kind of a mix of everything. Like this is running Windows 10. We've got an Arch VM on it. I had a Manjaro on the SSD, but it broke. Long story. We've got Mac OS over here, but out of all of them, I would say Linux has been the most even 5 years ago, Linux would not have been my first choice, but it's been my first choice recently as of late. Just because Windows just there's all these updates all the time. It's always breaking. Not really breaking, but just minor annoyances that I don't really deal with on Linux. macOS was decent until we had this Catalina update, but that's my own problems.
I mean, to me, macOS kind of shot itself in the foot when it stopped supporting 32-bit stuff, because I still have 32-bit Mac apps that I like to use from time to time.
Do you have any
So
examples? I've been curious.
I would have to open up my Mac to see. I don't know off the top of my hand, but there's a few apps that I have that are 32-bit only at the moment.
Gotcha. No worries. I was just curious if...
I quit using Windows like probably 10 years ago, and I went back. I've been primarily an Apple guy. I do use Windows for some of my kids' computers. That's why I say we use Windows as well. But I'd really like to take all their computers and turn them into Ubuntu computers, because to me, and I was telling y'all about this a little bit earlier, when I worked with my business partner before, I worked for him for his other company, and he had a tech company as well. And we kept having, these little ladies and stuff calling in, hey, my computer's infected. They're bringing in, the thing wouldn't work right. So we just see if they'd let us put them on Ubuntu, and they'd pretty much never come back after that, because they were taking care of it. Did it make more business for us? No. Did it make sense for them? Yes. It probably saved them a ton of money and headache, and they didn't really care. But it's a really great system for that. And I think if they ever start developing software like Adobe for it, watch out, Mac. I mean, just watch out.
And
Yep,
Steven had a great
I definitely
point.
agree. That,
Well, Steven had a great point as far as... sorry, go ahead, Keenan.
Duncan. No, you're good. I was just going to say that Ubuntu is really good as a general purpose desktop operating system now. They've, Ubuntu and the GNOME team, or GNOME team, however you want to pronounce it, has worked very hard to make it a very good general purpose operating system. But they're also kind of falling into some of the same traps. That Apple does in like not allowing people to change things, right? Like all of
Unity.
The stuff is very, it has to basically be done their way, or just don't do it. And like in a vacuum by itself, it's fine. But when stuff from their project starts literally interfering with other desktop environments in the Linux ecosystem, then I start to take a little bit of issue with it.
See, this is what differentiates me, a regular nerd, from you guys.
No,
like,
you're not wrong.
You got to do stuff with it. I'm like, man, just give me the stuff that doesn't break real easy, and I'm good, man. If I can use my Adobe and stuff, I'm good,
So the
and
thing
I'm not worried about the audio because it's Linux. I just use Garage, man.
Yeah, no, Ubuntu
I
broke.
wish there was an alternative to it. That's kind of what I was thinking, and
True.
That's sad if that's the truth. I haven't really used Ubuntu recently, but man, if they go down that path, I could see that being a problem for them as well. So
the thing that broke Ubuntu for me was like the sidebar. They like forced the sidebar on you. You can't remove it. You could probably like really tinker with the underpinnings of it. Like I found some things online. This is like 2012.
Basically their whole desktop environment. Like if you don't want to use the app, or you shouldn't even be using GNOME.
Yeah,
basically.
No, exactly. Like, that's kind of where I got to. I was like, maybe I'm just kind of beyond that point at this point in my life. And like, I did the same thing with my grandma. She's on Ubuntu and loves it, so it's a me problem.
good.
Right, like I said, it's a great general purpose desktop operating system. Like if you give it to a layperson who doesn't know computers, GNOME is fantastic. They can navigate, they can get by, everything is clearly laid out. It's very easy to use. I have no qualms with it as far as usability goes. They do a really good job at making it very usable for the end user. Most of my qualms with GNOME are on a more technical level, and some of their design philosophies I don't really agree with. But as a general purpose desktop environment, I think it's probably the best one. Especially for people who aren't tech savvy and don't want to tinker with stuff, right? Like if you just want to use it and forget about it, that's probably the desktop environment you want to be on, because stuff generally isn't going to change a bunch between new releases, right? Like they might release a new version, but your desktop isn't going to be radically different. They don't go changing defaults like other environments.
Yeah, I was going to say, so for my desktop environment that I typically use, if I'm just setting up a computer for general use for me to do work on, I'm going with KDE pretty much
Nice.
consistently.
Yeah.
I find it's like if you're moving from a mainstream operating system, I find GNOME is a lot more like Mac OS, where you have like a dock type thing. It's a sidebar,
Yeah.
but it's essentially the same concept. KDE is a lot more like Windows. When you first boot it up, you've got a
Yes.
start menu, you've got a taskbar, and everything like that. And it's
Yeah.
laid out in a very similar way. So, and it's really easy to install because you got Kubuntu, for the layperson. So if you're familiar enough to install Ubuntu on your machine, Kubuntu, you can throw it on, and you can even rice it out if you want to. There's a whole
Oh, for sure.
subreddit dedicated to just ricing out
Oh,
Linux
yeah.
desktops.
See, I
Duncan
run
introduced me to
KDE
that
as
one.
my desktop environment. That's generally what I run, and the main reason that I run KDE is because they have the best compositor on Linux. Period. If you disagree with me, you're wrong. I'm sorry, but KWin is the best compositor. Period. Like it is fucking amazing.
Does
I don't
Plasma
know
run
how
on
it is
that?
necessarily on other graphics cards, but with my NVIDIA card and with force composition pipeline turned on, I get no tearing whatsoever. I get awesome, like locked to my refresh rate frame rates. It's beautiful. Like it runs so freaking good compared to other compositors, even ones that I would consider pretty good, right? I'm not sure what GNOME use. I think it's called GWin or something. I don't
Yeah, that
like
sounds
their
right.
compositor. I don't find it to be very good. I find that it does sometimes behave a little bit funky, especially if you have like mixed refresh rate panels and stuff like that. It really just kind of falls apart. KWin seems to handle that a lot better than the GNOME compositor does. And then if you compare it against like something like Compton, KWin is still better because when they're doing like their blur effect, they're using the dual Kawase blur method, which is a kind of a weird blur method, but basically it just takes a picture, scales it down really far, and then scales it way back up, and that's how they make like
Like
a natural
Photoshop.
blur.
Compton, I prefer Ice Cube in NWS.
So
I knew this.
Compton is a compositor. There's a fork of it called Compton Try One that uses that same blur method that KDE uses, but KWin is still better because when it's sampling what's behind it, it doesn't sample just what's behind it. It also adds like a buffer to it. So if you have a window near the edge of your screen, you don't get that black edging that appears when you're using something like Compton. Which
Well,
This is
you're
actually,
easier
it's
probably
with
aren't
called
familiar
pictures.
with if you don't rice
But
i3. If you don't use i3, you probably won't know what Compton is, but it's a most compositor for like i3 and other tiling window managers.
it's easier to explain this
it,
with pictures. He's explained this to me before, and like I was like, oh, whoa, I'm glad I'm using this and not that.
it's
Like the
actually
blurring effects.
called PyCom Try One is the fork, because it's
Is it?
PyCom's the new
Okay.
version of Compton. But
Oh,
yeah, the thing that really irked me and why I can't use GNOME for like day-to-day desktop use is they don't have an option to blur things at all in their
Yeah.
compositor. So, um,
So boring.
but this is probably a little bit
yeah,
deep
no, we're getting into the
this
weeds.
subject.
On another subject, are y'all aware of what Ubuntu means?
Oh, heck, I don't remember. It's been like 20
I
years.
know because you are. It says, in fact, the word literally means, it's a Zulu phrase, Ubuntu. I'm not going to try to, which literally means a person is a person through other people. It's like a kind of a nebulous
Community,
concept
kind
of
of.
common humanity. It's kind of a
Yeah.
cool thing.
No, like that's
It is.
Ubuntu. I would never have learned about Linux without Ubuntu. At least as early as I did. I tried
Yeah.
out some flavors, but it was like I don't get this, and I'm breaking things.
TIG is just like an alternative version to the ELK stuff, where it's like Telegraph, InfluxDB, and Grafana for like dashboards, essentially. And TIG is more focused on like metrics, where you can see like between this period and this period, this is what like CPU usage was at, for an example. Whereas like ELK, it has a lot of uses, but like the main way it differs is that's more for like ingestion of like documentation, like or documents like log files and stuff like that. To where like we have central logging set up in my company where I just spun up an ELK stack via like Docker Compose. You have all of your machines, you install what they call beats on, which are basically agents that ship logs and metrics and stuff like that to the stack. And then you can pull info from that. So if you have an issue where like, oh, a customer got to a site that's not supposed to be publicly available, you have all of your logs in one place where you can say, this is a time period I want to look at. These are the servers I want logs from, and kind of drill down from there. It may be kind of heavy.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
For this, yeah.
Maybe another.
It can be very
show.
technical.
Yeah.
I was like, I would like to move out, like in the country where and have good internet.
Dude, I've been thinking the same thing. It's like, especially since COVID, like even, so we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and I do have decent internet, but there's no way I'm ever going to get anything faster than the way I have now.
Because we can dive in from that, which I mean, like, I think that's a good goal for everyone to have, especially you're seeing a lot of companies in the Bay Area allowing their employees to move wherever they want and just doing straight up remote work. So I think like being able to live in the middle of nowhere and still have good internet so you can attend meetings and do all of like the standard work you need to do on a day-to-day basis is just getting more and more important. Especially now.
Is that, and I think this, hopefully this isn't really a political question, but too bad, but
No.
but is that something that we should have as far as infrastructure? You know, Eisenhower brought along a lot of the roads and stuff that we have. Should whatever the next president is start something that's, you know,
I've been saying that since like,
encouraging that, not necessarily doing it, but encouraging that.
right.
Yeah,
No,
I think that the thing they need to encourage is community-run broadband, where you see there's a few different cities scattered across the U.S. where they have community-run broadband, which is these are people from the community that are investing in like networking equipment and setting up links to people who may not be able to get internet where they're at, or they're being charged an insane amount of money for it. And so what they're doing is they're building these networks up. They get like a fiber backbone at a data center, and they'll either pull fiber or they'll do microwave connections between houses, because you can do like chain links that way, and so you can get feasibly good internet, you know, in your community if you're willing to invest in it. I think we just need to see that encouraged.
If you get something between the line of sight and the microwave receiver, will it blow up? Just that.
no, I was wondering that too. I was like, so this microwave.
The microwave thing just, I see
it would take a sheet of lead though, because you have to understand these are microwaves, right? So they are very high frequency radio waves. So it would take a very heavy like metal object to block that radio wave, right? So like organic material for the most part it might attenuate the signal to some degree, but it's not going to be like a total block if a bird flies in front of it or something. You might just get a little bit worse signal for that split second.
It's like
I have a palm tree in front of mine, and it still gets good internet. And the palm tree is like 5 feet in front of it, and my ISP is like I said, like 14 miles away in like downtown Vista, and I'm still getting. I still have the capability to do 200 up and down.
Yeah, like I said, most organic matter is going to contain enough water to where the signal is pretty much going to pass through mostly uninterfered. Like I said, there will be some attenuation of the signal, but it's not significant enough to really be an issue. That's how cell phones work. It's basically just a different frequency.
What do you think of SpaceLink? Like the
Starlink stuff?
Yeah, Starlink.
Yeah. I think that would be really good for people who don't have access to good internet currently, but I would still like to see more encouragement of, you know, community driven broadband and local small ISPs, because I think competition is sorely needed in the market. When you go to most areas right now, go pick a house in a major city and see what your options are for internet. You probably have 2, maybe 3 providers if you're lucky to choose from. And I think that's a shame. I think there needs to be more with how much technology has advanced to still have broadband, that feels like we're, in the 90s in some places, doesn't seem right to me, especially in these more rural communities who probably arguably might need the internet more than cities in more wealthy environments, right?
I just got a relevant link to this, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Although,
so
fun
this is
story
actually,
about microwave. I used to work for a company in like downtown San Diego that had they were a wireless ISP. They call them a WISP. So it was all microwave. We had one client that was just a little bit above the freeway. Like you use Google Earth to make sure that you have line of sight from one of your pre-existing places. And we had line of sight to them, but what the salespeople didn't think about was anytime a semi-truck drove on the freeway, it was tall enough and dense enough that it completely cut out internet to that customer. So this was almost like this very frequently happening to the point where I don't know if they're even still a customer of that ISP, but I definitely wouldn't be. So there's some downfalls to it, but realistically, it's a much better option than what a lot of people have. And the latency for microwave is insanely fast.
Way better than satellite.
Where I'm at, it's better than cable. My dad has a house in like a highly populated city, and he can ping Google in like 20, 30 milliseconds, whatnot. I'm out here in the country. Like I said, 14 miles away is where I'm getting internet from, beamed to me. I can ping Google, and I have like maybe 8 seconds or 8 milliseconds. Yeah.
Good.
I shared a link. We have a person over hearing our conversation. She wanted to share. That was actually a Bernie talking point, was high-speed internet for all. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be done like through taxes and stuff. If it's done in a way that it's
like incentivize businesses to roll out this fiber. No, I was thinking along the same lines too.
Well, we had incentivized these companies previously. We gave them a ton of money to build the infrastructure.
I'm not talking AT&T or Verizon or any of these what's Spectrum owned by? Whatever Spectrum's owned by. Charter, yeah.
No.
I mean more like, hey, you want to start a fiber business? Here's $100,000 because it's really expensive to get started, because it's impossible to start one. I think we have a mutual friend, Duncan and I, who I think he's started doing some of that in Wyoming, but it's not cheap.
No. Most of it's regulations too. You have to pay so much in regulatory fees to be allowed to offer internet service to customers, and you have to report all kinds of different things. It is a pretty big obstacle to overcome if you were just someone wanting to start an ISP as a business. It definitely takes a lot of capital to get started, and also you're not going to recuperate that capital immediately. It's going to be something that takes
20
time.
years.
So
yeah.
So I think that de-incentivizes a lot of startup companies. We have seen a lot more in recent years than
Google Fiber.
Historically.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it's enough. I still want to see more. More competition.
Yeah, so Yacht has been my quarantine project. I started looking at it. I guess I started working with it in June. I had no development experience previous to that. I'd done some Python scripts, but this is my first full-fledged application that I've dived into. And it's been a really rewarding experience. I was initially really surprised at how many people were interested in it, because there's some other options out there right now, but they're really heavily focused on the enterprise spectrum of, managing Docker and whatnot. And I wanted something that, just everyday people could use. And then I'll find a way to maybe monetize that product in a way that doesn't affect, standard users, where I can build a CMS on the back end, provide a company with a panel where they can control, a bunch of Yacht instances and spin them up or spin them down and whatnot. And that way the main product can be free. And I'm not dealing with, having to figure out how to monetize an open source application and pissing people off on accident.
Yeah, that's it's a fine
throwing
line to walk.
ads or like charging a subscription. But that's the hard thing. And it's like, I want to do like mobile app for it. And initially I was thinking about charging for it, but at the same time, it's like, I should just go and like deal with the enterprises and trying to get money from them.
Yeah,
That way,
there's models out there.
day-to-day people have this easy to use like product, that they don't have to worry about. It just works and it's easy. The whole goal is trying to make Docker accessible to anyone. Speaking of which, I just got a Docker Compose support working in
Yay!
the Compose tag on Docker Hub. So if anyone wants to
Nice.
check that out, go for it.
And we'll have links in the show notes. You have a long board, and like it's got sand on it, and you like try to knock each other's. It's like they play it in the
Shuffleboard.
Olympics. Shuffleboard, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sounds. Shuffleboard is a bar game, right? But like
Probably.
it can
Well,
be, right?
depends.
But like,
I was
but to
underage.
me, like that this game, since or not this game, but like that game that you were talking about, it's kind of a bruh game. It's kind of a like croquet, right? It's
Yeah.
like or polo. It's like come
Polo,
on,
yeah.
man. Hey, let's go down and play polo on our horses. Come on, dude.
My horse is too sick to play polo today.
Sorry, guys. Can't play polo. Got a sick horse. What kind of horse is it? What horse is it?
Evelyn's sick today, so we can play croquet instead.
Horse. It's a pimento horse. It's your horse's cheese? No, I mean a palamento. Sorry.
We definitely have enough for like the first part, and then we can make the second part like the ending part maybe, and then we'll use the guest part in the middle.
Okay.
So what topics do we want to end off on? Like,
You guys see that
I don't
bullshit
know.
with the iPhone 12 camera?
No.
no? Tell us about it.
Oh, they're like serialized. You can't switch them out to
Oh
different
yeah.
phones. If you fuck your camera, Apple's the only one that can fix it.
Like even retailers can't fix it.
Like you
Or
buy
third
two
party.
brand new iPhone 12s, swap just the cameras, and it's like, nah, bro, camera's fucking broken.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like
That's
somebody
modern Apple.
someone in the comments was like, no, this is good for like stealing iPhones, like to deal with theft in a way. And I was like, maybe some ways, but like, what if, yeah, no, like your phone's like that expensive and that's the only reason it's getting stolen.
Trust me,
Because you have
the
these,
people in China that are taking these stolen iPhones are fully capable of taking the NAND off that board and just reflashing it with whatever fucking info they want, right? Like,
I think that's
I don't know.
what someone said. Yeah.
I don't know. Very skeptical.
What do you think
What do you-
of, go ahead.
So America's never really had a really great like phone of their own, like something that they make. It's always been Chinese phones, like all the iPhones are
Oh, yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah.
You can't produce electronics like that in America at a reasonable price.
So here's kind of my question. I think certainly regardless of who the president is, there is some injury to the relationship with China, and we
Yeah.
can't possibly continue to go down that road in every way. We have to have some backups, and
Yeah.
I have heard it said that Vietnam is the next,
Oh.
major producer for us, just because of their capabilities as
Taiwan.
far as that. Taiwan?
Taiwan.
Okay.
Put all your money on Taiwan. That's where
Why do you say
everyone's
that?
moving. Everyone who wants to leave China, they're going to Taiwan. And then you have
Gotcha.
companies like TSMC, who is like literally the largest like semiconductor manufacturer on earth, period. Like they make
Okay.
more fucking shit than anyone. And they're in TSMC. The T is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC.
Yeah.
Is
So,
that
like,
where
well,
NVIDIA
they
is?
make- Say what?
Is that where NVIDIA is making their chips?
That's where NVIDIA makes their chips. That's where Intel makes
so.
their chips. That's who makes AMD's chips. That's who makes
wow.
Apple's chips. They make like fucking everything.
Yeah.
It's them and Global Foundries is basically who makes basically everything. Like if you're making a processor or some type of SoC, and we're talking like high performance stuff like big processors and stuff like desktop class processors or like modern high end smartphone processors that are using really small manufacturing processes like 7 nanometer and fucking 5 nanometer. That's all going to be either TSMC fab or Global Foundries. And I don't even think Global Foundries can go down to like 5 or 7 nanometers yet. I still think they're at like 10. But I could totally be wrong. I haven't checked recently. But
You haven't got your
a lot of companies
nanometer ruler out to check?
No.
You gotta
How
have a
small is that? That's
microscope.
pretty small. Yeah, for real though.
Yeah, so a lot of the companies that have been trying to, get out of China have been moving to Taiwan, have been moving a lot of their manufacturing to Taiwan because the price of raw materials, the price of labor, it's very competitive to
Yeah,
China.
but isn't Taiwan just basically China light?
Kind
That's
of,
what I was
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, like China, where people don't hate China, or hate where they live, China.
I'm not sure exactly how it works. I think it is its
Cool.
own
Up in the air.
thing, but I don't know.
Yeah. Certainly,
Taiwan.
I think. Yeah.
Sorry.
I
Sorry, go ahead.
certainly wonder, though. I do think that places like Indonesia, Vietnam, for manufacturing, maybe not technological manufacturing as much, but I know, for instance, Indonesia is really good at building guitars. South Korea as
Right.
well. South Korea seems to have a pretty good knack for vehicle manufacturing, which is interesting as well. And I mean, they stood up, basically stood up a whole nother major corporation in America with Kia and Hyundai, so that's interesting. But I mean, I certainly think we need good relationships over there. But I can understand, like, we gotta be careful that we don't support stuff that's not humane, right?
Yeah,
and that's
for sure.
the biggest thing for me is like
There's a lot of that in China.
Yeah. the inhumane stuff that's going on in China. We can't be a part of that anymore. We got to figure out a better way. And I say that, and I made a statement earlier today. This is the first time that I've seen people with this little respect for one another, as far as respect for one another's humanity. Like I think that's a huge problem right now. People look at one another and they go, well, I like Biden. Well, I like Trump. Well, I hate you. Well, I hate you.
Yeah.
And they don't even look at like anything else. That's just
They don't look past that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I and not even that. You look at the race issues and the riots and everything that's happened this year, alongside of coronavirus, and people are just hateful to each other. It's just I'd like to see us get to a place as a society where we don't show our ass every time we encounter something difficult.
Yeah.